Max Verstappen is clearly dominating F1 this season, and this has, of course, caused people on the grid to speak out about it. Some are in awe of his performances, and some are blaming the team for preferring him over Sergio Perez. Several comments about the disparities between the Red Bull drivers have recently surfaced, and Toto Wolff was no exception, slamming Red Bull and Max Verstappen about their car setups. In a press conference following qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix, when Verstappen beat Perez by 1.3 seconds, the Austrian said, "Odd, bizarre. Checo's not an idiot. We've seen it all these years. Checo is a Grand Prix winner, a multiple Grand Prix winner, and he was at Racing Point. I cannot comprehend. We have seen Max destroy every single teammate that was with him, whether it is the ability to create a car around himself that is just very tricky to control but fast if you can. That makes those gaps. But 1.3 seconds? I haven't heard any explanations, but odd." Many saw these comments as a dig from Toto Wolff aimed at Red Bull, suggesting they are only focused on their golden boy and are willing to do everything to get the car exactly the way he wants. So, what happens next? A response from the man in question himself, of course. Max Verstappen is calling the idea that he is only successful in Formula 1 because Red Bull built the car around him bullshit. Verstappen is on the verge of winning his third F1 championship in a row, and he's also on the verge of creating a new record for consecutive victories, as success in this weekend's Italian Grand Prix would be his 10th in a row. Verstappen was questioned about Mercedes chief Toto Wolff's allegation that he tends to destroy his teammates because the car is designed around him at Monza on Thursday, which Verstappen branded bullshit comments. The remark in issue was made last Saturday after qualifying at the Dutch Grand Prix, and although it wasn't directly aggressive, there were some words that stood out. "We've seen Max destroy every single teammate that was with him," Wolff said of Verstappen's huge lead over Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull. Whether it is his ability to create a car around himself that is just very tricky to control, but fast if you can control it, and that makes those gaps. Wolff's response hinted at a second possible explanation for Verstappen having a car developed around him. He never actually said that, but it's worth noting that he didn't exactly say what Verstappen was told he said during Verstappen's interview at Monza. Wolff, on the other hand, was plainly pointing to something that many people think, and the implication of his remarks was obvious. While the question was not exactly framed, it was valid, as was Verstappen's response. "It's not like that," Verstappen said in his response. "I'll just drive the car the fastest way possible. I'm not there to tell the guys to give me more front end because that's how I like it. I just say design me the fastest car and I'll drive around that. Because every single year, it's just different. Every car drives a little bit different. People will say, what is your driving style? My driving style is not something particular. I adapt to what I need for the car to go quickly." Verstappen has been banging on about this for a long time. He takes pleasure in his versatility, and those who deal closely with him are often eager to commend him for it. He considers it a critical talent that the top F1 drivers throughout history have always shown. But the feeling remains, could Red Bull have built their car around Verstappen? So rather than delving into what makes Verstappen so good, let's address the concept that the RB19 is constructed around him. It's an oversimplification with some validity. Red Bull is creating the finest car it can, as Verstappen says. The greatest car Red Bull can develop will most likely be influenced by what Verstappen loves, but more importantly, by what he can control. The tolerances and capabilities of the stronger driver will help determine the development path in every team. Verstappen is quicker and can deal with certain behaviors that Perez cannot. Red Bull will not design a car that exactly meets Perez's demands if it is, for example, 2/10 slower than a car Verstappen can handle. That would be deliberately limiting its performance. Finally, that is just a fact of F1, especially with a driver like Verstappen who's not only extremely talented, but also adept at coping with the type of rear instability that can severely hamper other drivers. And however you interpret Wolff's comments, he's not attempting to diminish Verstappen's role to what we are experiencing in 2023. The same cannot be true for some of Verstappen's detractors, albeit he seems unconcerned about it. "I'm not out there to try and prove anything," said Verstappen. "I'm just there to do the best I can with the material I have." Probably also people don't know what's going on within the team and how difficult it is. Even when you have a very good car to deliver what we are doing to win every race so far, some people also can't appreciate when somebody is constantly doing a good job. And I'm not talking about myself only, just the whole team operation. It's clear to see that Verstappen thinks the car is just being set up as fast as possible, and he just seems to cope better. Sergio Perez is somewhat on board, stating that he's just enduring a difficult season. During the news conference before the Italian Grand Prix, Sergio Perez was asked about the same subject as well. The Mexican driver responded in a more neutral and conservative way. "I think it's hard to say. We'd have to look at it race by race. At the end of the day, sometimes the gap is bigger. For example, how it was in Zandvoort, it was mainly getting the conditions right and exploring everything out of the car. And the difference is, if you don't get the conditions right, you'll see a big delta, so it's how it works sometimes. We've seen with other drivers those sorts of gaps." However, he added that what really matters is what happens after Abu Dhabi, admitting that this season has been difficult. "It's a long season in F1, and it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, where we are now. It only matters where we're able to finish, and then we can summarize our season in Abu Dhabi. I went through a tough patch in the middle of the season, where I was struggling the most with the car, but I think that's all behind us now, and we should be having good races from now on." Let's hope so for Checo, because Perez, who trails Verstappen by 138 points with 9 rounds left, has had his position at Red Bull threatened in recent months. Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko and Christian Horner appear to disagree over Perez's future at Zandvoort, with Horner stating Perez will be retained for 2024, although Marko had stated that the team's driver roster has not been determined. What do you think? Is the car set up in a way that suits Verstappen, or is he just able to adapt to the strongest possible car setup and design philosophy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. One thing is sure, Verstappen is only one race away from passing Vettel and Ascari's straight wins record. And many might think it'll be an easy feat this Sunday in Monza, but it might be far from easy according to Gasly. Gasly feels the Italian Grand Prix will be the toughest test of their F1 2023 winning streak yet. Verstappen is the clear frontrunner to establish a new milestone of 10 in a row, which would maintain Red Bull's unblemished record this season, with the F1 2023 season already as good as wrapped up. Gasly understands what it's like to compete against Verstappen as a Red Bull teammate. He thinks what we've seen is a team and driver firing on all cylinders in every aspect. Asked by media what makes Verstappen so strong, Gasly replied, "At some point, it's when you put all good ingredients together, you end up with a good deal. Trying to do a good pizza with rotten tomatoes, it doesn't work. They've got a good base, they've got a good car, they've got an excellent driver. He's the focus of the team. It's just everything is performing at its best exactly at the same moment, which ended up with such a domination. He is performing at his best. I think the Red Bull car is objectively and definitely the fastest in this paddock. They're doing very few mistakes. They're often the best at pit stops. They're just on top of their game, and there's nothing really which seems to unsettle them, especially on his side of the garage. But as a driver, he's very talented. And you start winning once, twice, build up the confidence on top of the skills that you've got. And on top of that, you know that every single weekend you come with the fastest car. So it's almost like kind of feeling a little bit invincible. And that's a bit where they are at the moment. However, Gasly believes that this is the most difficult battle Verstappen will face in F1 2023 to continue his winning run, with only one more needed to create a new outright record. Asked if he ever thought Vettel's 9-race winning streak could be beaten, Gasly replied, "Maybe I was naive, but I did think that it will be beaten at some point. I think you get to appreciate and respect a lot of these records. But at the same time, I've seen from, let's say, my short life now, that there have been incredible records that have been broken, which no one would have thought. I think this weekend is actually probably the trickiest one for Max to win. It's Monza, it's a very different track, it's very low drag. While a lot of incidents can happen into turn 1, you have a massive gain with DRS, so if someone is fast enough to stick to your DRS the whole race, they could get a chance to. I'll be surprised if he pulls out his 32-second lead like he can do on some other tracks. What do you think? Will Verstappen get to 10 race wins in a row this weekend? Let us know your expectations in the comments down below.